I'm just going to say a few words of introduction to Sagaraghosa. Who needs an introduction, or does she? We were ordained on the same retreat.
We were?
Yeah, we are Indian order members, if you didn't know. We were ordained in India.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in 2005. So we're almost venerable. Yeah, I can't believe it. Nearly 20 years ago. Yeah. And Sagaraghosa is just such a lovely person to get to know in a bit more depth. She has a fine mind, mathematician by training and a publisher by career in the end. And she gives a lot to the Sangha here in Cambridge. In fact, her book, Starting on the Buddhist Path, available in all good bookshops, is sort of based on some of the courses that she used to run here. She used to run courses here for many, many years, really supporting a lot of people as they started at the Buddhist Centre. And then, of course, she kept on all those friendships. So now she runs really excellent ongoing study groups, which were for mitras. But those mitras, a lot of them are ordained now, but they won't leave the group. So you've just got a few more to get ordained, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah. But she's a great friend to many people. She's a great friend to many people, actually. I shouldn't just say those as words. She is a really consistent, devoted friend who really cares for people. So you really put the time in, you really sort of connect with people, and a lot of wisdom to offer as well as the friendship through study and these other sorts of contexts. Yeah. So lovely to have you here. Thanks for giving this talk. Look forward to hearing about acrobats.
So I might stand up so I can see everybody and throw my voice a bit easier. I'm going to talk about the story about bamboo acrobats, and it actually does come from my book. So let's see, you know. So it probably helpful just have a bit of background. You can look up on the internet about bamboo acrobats, and there is a video there showing two people doing what's described in this story, or what's going on in this story. And basically there's a man at the bottom, and there's a thick piece of bamboo, which is quite tall, and he has it on his shoulder. So he's balancing on his shoulder, and it's someone, in the video actually it's a man, but I think in this story it's a woman, climbs up the bamboo pole to the top and does some acrobatics at the top. And amazingly, I mean, it is quite amazing how it doesn't fall over, you know. So the man at the bottom actually does move a bit sometimes to make sure that they stay balanced. So it's quite amazing. Anyway, that's what this story is about, these bamboo acrobats. So I'll first of all just read the story. This is a story the Buddha told. Once upon a time, there was a teacher of acrobats using a bamboo pole. He placed the pole straight up on his shoulder and told his disciple, while going up and down on the pole, you protect me and I will also protect you. Protecting each other, we will put on a show and gain much wealth. Then the disciple of acrobatics said to the teacher of acrobatics, it won't do as you said. Instead, we should each take care to protect ourselves. Then we will put on a show and gain much wealth. We will be physically at ease, and yet I will get down safely. The teacher of acrobatics said, as you said, we will take care to protect ourselves. This is correct, and it is also the meaning of what I said. So he's saying that it's actually trying to say it's both ways round. And the Buddha then said, Having protected oneself, one also protects the other. Protecting the other and oneself is proper protection. How does one protect others by protecting oneself? By becoming familiar with one's own mind, developing it, protecting it accordingly, and attaining realization. And I think that, I haven't quite finished, but I think that's quite surprising. How do we protect others? And you might think it's by being kind to them or whatever. And the Buddha says, what's most important is that you're aware of what's going on in your own mind. And then he goes on to say, how does one protect oneself by protecting others? By the gift of fearlessness, the gift of non-violation, the gift of harmlessness, by having a mind of benevolence and empathy for the other. So there again, it's interesting. How do you protect yourself? You protect yourself by being kind to others. And again, that's not what you would think. So that's one thing that really fascinates me about this story. That the answer that the Buddha gives is not what I might expect. And it illustrates how it's important both to look after ourselves and to look after others. And it's interesting, first of all, about how do we look after ourselves by looking after others? And yes, sorry, yes. So to look after ourselves, we need to look after others. And it reminds me a bit of the instruction on a plane. Remember that if there's a problem with the air, you must first put a mask on yourself before you try to help anyone else. And there's a good reason for that, because if you don't, then you could just collapse and not be able to help anyone else. You need to be able to breathe yourself. And it's the same thing. You need to have a mind which is mindful in order to in order to look after others. So he's saying, the Buddha's saying, we need to be familiar with our own mind, developing it, protecting it accordingly, and attaining realization. So what do we need to do? So we need to practice mindfulness, don't we, to become familiar with our mind. And I'm aware that there have been times when I've had emotions which I haven't really been aware of. And then I find them leaking out in conversations. You know, I'm feeling a bit of resentment or I'm a bit angry or something, and it comes out without me meaning to. So it's really important so that we know our own minds so that that doesn't happen. And that merely is protecting other people. And also we develop our minds by meditation, by studying the Dharma. And it's interesting, you know, as I say, it's not always obvious that that might help others, but I do notice my husband is not a Buddhist, but he's very particular that I meditate every day. Well, I think there might be a reason for that. Perhaps he notices, you know, that it does affect me. Because it might be for my own good as well, but, you know. And then the Buddha says to look after ourselves. We need to take care of others. So what we need to do is give the gift of fearlessness, the gift of non-violation, the gift of harmlessness, by having a mind full of benevolence and empathy. I was quite interested hearing Kula Priya in the introduction, talking about fearlessness. because this is one of the gifts that the Buddha says is really important for us to give. And of course, there are ways in which we can give some fearlessness, you know. For example, you know, Edith's come here to support me, which I'm saying here. Edith's my daughter, those of you who don't know. Amber's come, you know, and I've got friends here, you know, and Chandra here, Mark Chandra. So, you know, I've got friends who support me, and that helps me to be a bit more fearless in doing this. But quite often we can't necessarily support, help someone to be a bit more fearless. But what we can do, I think, is we can help them to feel the fear and do it anyway. There's a wonderful book called that, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and that I found actually really helpful in my life. You know, that just because you're frightened doesn't mean you shouldn't do something. And if you go ahead and do it, it sort of expands your boundaries. Whereas if you're always trying to be safe, you can just sort of start doing less and less. And then non-violation, harmlessness. Not hurting another by physical thoughts or words. I think it has a big effect when you use your temper with someone. I very rarely lost my temper with somebody, and when I have, I've really regretted it later. And when people have lost their temper with me, I find, you know, I'm quite scared of them afterwards, so it really can affect the relationship. And then having a mind full of benevolence and empathy. And when we do that, we have a feeling of connection. Prevents a feeling of loneliness. I had an interesting experience once when I was cycling from the station to here. And first of all, there was a car stopped and let me out on my bike. Now this is quite unusual really, because cars don't often stop for bicycles, so it was really nice and I felt quite nice about that. And then I came to a place where actually I had the right of way. I think it was going around the car, but I stopped and let a car go first. And the interesting thing was how I felt about that. I just felt a real glow that I'd managed to do that, which was greater than how I felt when someone had stopped for me. It was just so interesting how good it made me feel, and sort of that feeling, that connection with the car driver. So, and actually it's been researched too, that sort of the best way to enhance your own happiness is to do something for others. So yes, it's really good. Anyway, there's a sort of more a bigger story in this little tale too, which is not to go in for sort of black and white thinking. So, you know, we could think that either we need to look after ourselves or we need to look after others. And in fact, it's much more, we need to look after both, to look after ourselves and to look after others. And this applies in lots of different situations. So that's what I'm going to sort of talk about now. Talking in terms of both and rather than either or. So, you know, some examples of that are, I come across some people who are really doing a lot of caring of somebody else, and, you know, sometimes it's women who are, you know, looking after their husbands, and they think, is it okay to go on retreat? You know, and actually, it's very okay to go on retreat. It doesn't mean that your husband or whatever is necessarily going to lose out, because you'll be coming back refreshed, in a better state of mind, and it will help the relationship. And similarly, you know, if there's somebody who really doesn't have any responsibility, it can be helpful for them actually to do things for others. So, you know, coming here, volunteering at the CBC can be a good idea. I mean, it's very easy when you feel bad, you know, sometimes to think, oh, I just need to be alone because I'm feeling bad. Actually, it might be much more helpful for you and for others if you go out and talk to somebody else. Some other examples. Well, actually, Philip Brea had an example, didn't you, about both being mindful of what's going on in your body in the present and having a sense of where you're going, you know, the direction you're going in. And again, it's good to have both of those, both to know what's happening in the present and to have a sense of the direction you're going in. In conversation, we need to both speak and to listen. Both of them. Some people really like certainty and to pin everything down so they feel safe. Other people like much more to be surprise and possibility. They can feel like alternatives, but actually both are important. Both having some certainty and having some possibility. We have different modes of mind. Those of you who know about Ian McGilchrist's work about left brain and right brain, I'll just give a very quick summary. The left brain is much more conceptual, focused, and about acquiring things. The right brain is much more intuitive and holistic. And they can seem like alternatives. But both are important. You know, we both need to have that conceptual side, and we need that more intuitive and holistic side. I had a conversation actually yesterday where it pointed out to me that when you see a rainbow, the wavelength of light is actually just changing continuously and equally as you go along. But what we see are several different colours, separate colours. Now it's useful to us to have those concepts of colours, so we're sort of chunking down all that information. But it's not the full reality. It's like a simplification of a reality which is going on there. And sort of all our experience is a bit like that. We give words to it, which help us to have a sense of understanding, can be useful for navigating the world. And reality is much more complex than that. They are a simplification, and it's helpful to keep in mind that they are a simplification and not everything. We can have a feeling that we're separate from others. In some sense we are, you know, my body's different than everybody else's body. So there's a sense in which we're separate. And there's a sense in which we're all connected. You know, we're sharing a language, we're sharing ideas, probably sharing how we feel a bit, sharing this hot room. And our self, it's a self in relation to others. So we're both have a sense of in a sense, separate, and we're connected. And it was just striking me as I was reflecting about this that, you know, I've certainly heard people say that they go off to be by themselves, so they have more sense of themselves. And I was thinking, well, they have a sense of themselves by themselves. Actually, you know, how we are with other people is us too. And for me, I've realised that, you know, I can be different with different people. So I'm not just one self, I'm just a self in relation to lots of people. It's not just both and, it's this and this and this and this. That's all in a sense, you know, a sort of big thing. It's like you know, we talk about no self, perhaps sort of shunyata, but it's also sort of openness, that we're everything, you know, that we have connections everywhere. All of these could be considered as examples of the middle way, where there are two ways of seeing things, and neither is completely everything, complete truth. Putting them together, we get more of a sense of reality and truth. So, I've got that as a discussion point for you, which is going to be sort of quite a challenging discussion, I think, but you can, what I'd like you to talk about is any examples that you can think of where there might be black and white thinking, and how you can do it instead as both and. Now, when you see black and white thinking, sometimes it's easier to see that in other people than it is in yourself. So, you know, you might like to sort of just reflect on what you see in other people, but you might like to think about yourself. Is there any way in which you just tend to think one thing is correct? I had another lovely story, actually, just one about that. About Ajahn Chah. Apparently, his students used to say, well, said to him once, why is it sometimes you say we should do one thing, and sometimes you say you should do something exactly the opposite? And Ajahn Chah said, well, you know, imagine you're going down a road and sometimes you're veering off to the left, and then I say, go to the right, go to the right. And other times you're going to the right, and I say, go to the left, go to the left. And I just have two teachings, really, go to the left and go to the right. Anyway, you know, it's just that sense that you can go to extremes, you know, and actually need to sort of combine both into more of a middle way. So that's quite a big subject. You might just want to talk about looking after yourself compared to looking after others. That's one aspect of it. So that could be what you talk about, but might want to talk more generally. So I suggest you get into groups of 3 or 4 and talk for probably about 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll come together and share ideas. Well, I'm really interested to know what you might have come up with. So if you feel brave enough to share in a bigger group, I'd be very interested.
Yes. We think you're right.
Actually, I think I'm right.
So we're both right.
No, we decided here that wasn't. There was too much reputational risk. And
we've been talking about a sort of a wholehearted generosity
Yes.
that occurs with that equilibrium, I think that you're kind of pointing to, and that feeling, like when you described letting the car go,
Yes.
that you were generous,
Yeah.
and hopefully you got that reciprocal feeling of that generosity was taken and given and received, and
That's
therefore
right.
perhaps that car driver's going to stop. Just like, you know, this big effect that we don't know.
Absolutely.
But they're kind of I think the near enemy is the kind of risk of doing it for an effect.
Yeah.
You know? So then
Yeah.
we're talking about, I was listening to Pim Sheridan, and she was talking about baking it till you're making it, and then you came up with a much nicer set of words. Just remind me, because you said instead of baking it,
Acting as if.
acting as if.
Yes.
Well, that was nice.
Yes, that's a nice way of thinking about it, isn't it? Yeah. And it's you can get into quite a bit of tangle sometimes. I mean, like, you know, wondering about your motivation for giving, you know, because you can be giving because you want the person to like you, you know, and should that stop you? And I think on the whole, no, it shouldn't, you know, just do it anyway. So yes, our motivations are often mixed. And, you know, just acting in a way which we'd like to act is at least something. But being aware too of the mixed motivations is also helpful. Takes both hands really, again.
And when you are thinking about other people's motivations, it's again easy
Yeah.
to put them in to say, give them one, one negative one often, or maybe one positive one when it's actually mixed.
Yes, it's
And
again,
that is
it's,
super helpful if you.
yes, it's mixed, yes.
Perhaps I could say something from my personal experience that came up in the conversation that we were having,
Yeah,
as you were talking about someone who's a carer,
yes,
and could they go on retreat, and they need to do that for themselves in order to better care and so on. And in a way, this is an opposite example of so I've been living in Estonia, leading things in Tallinn for 20 years, and I get to a Monday evening when we have our equivalent of Dharma evening or Sangha evening, and before the session starts, before people start to arrive, and I'm feeling tired, and I really don't want to do it. I'd rather go off and pick up a detective thriller and read it, or watch a football match or something like that.
yeah,
I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's the honest truth. I don't want to do it. But of course, I do it. And within 5 minutes, everything in my mood and body changes. And by the end of the evening, I'm really lifted up. I'm in a much better
Absolutely.
state
yes,
by helping others.
absolutely,
It's the opposite in a way. It's one things you were saying,
yes.
but so you actually push yourself to do it.
If you,
want to.
absolutely, when you do,
It changes things.
it does change things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, do things for others, and especially I think when it's to do with the Dharma.
Yeah.
You know, it's just naturally uplifting. Yeah, I agree.
And the other side, a bit of a negative side of just thinking about this is, I can't go off on retreat because they need me.
Yes,
And it can be a justification actually for not going on.
retreat, yeah.
So there's sort of the negative.
So that's the negative side, isn't
Yeah.
it? And so it's sort of balancing that, isn't it? You know, and seeing, I mean, it used to be the same for me. I used to teach the newcomers classes, and I used to feel I shouldn't go on retreat during term time, which really restricted when I went on retreat. There often weren't good retreats in the holidays. And it's a really difficult decision to make.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I could go on solitary retreat, but you know, it is useful to go on retreat, and that gives me material actually to share with other people, and helps me, well, develops me. So that's important. I can only sort of communicate what I know myself in a certain way. So yeah, so it's always that different balance.
I think it can be quite interesting to think of the role of the bamboo,
Mm,
because with your story, you know, the acrobat, the kind of holder and stuff, but the bamboo plays a massive part,
Yeah.
doesn't it? You know, and so I think with that black and white thinking, it's like actually without the bamboo, there's no acrobatics.
no,
So, you know, I think it kind of, I don't know, there's quite a nice, yeah, I don't know what the thought is, but I think to think
Yeah.
about the role of the bamboo is, it's just, yeah, it's that thing that you can't put into words, maybe.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
bamboo.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Our group benefited from your topic very much, but it seemed to me that what we shared as a group, us,
Yes,
was our own recent success at dealing with the black and white thinking that
oh,
you got. We shared our personal examples that you are surprisingly intensely.
oh, lovely, yes. Yes, so just noticing those, and it's lovely to be able to share them, isn't it? Yeah. Mm. Mm.
Yes, our little group, very small.
we were working on the same sort of lines. We realised that this black and white thinking leaves no room for creativity.
Yeah,
And, you know, if you think that way or that way, you've got to think outside the box.
that's right.
It's a silly cliche, I know, but yeah, that's the same word.
Mm,
If you're just too rigid,
yeah.
you don't try it. You probably read the book. I may be wrong.
Oh, I haven't read that now.
It's
Yeah.
details for you. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
But that's a Buddhist,
yeah,
written by a forest monk, who was going to lead in anyway. But the nice thing about the book, it's called I May Be Wrong. Not I might be wrong, but I
yeah,
may be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to be wrong.
yeah,
And if you allow yourself to be wrong, you can try things and you'll learn far more than being rigid.
yes,
It's a lovely book.
yes, that's right. Lovely. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yes, I mean, I gave, certainly written in the book, my book, you know, that I had that image of myself that I couldn't write because I studied maths, you know, so, yeah, I thought, oh, I can't, when you do maths, you don't normally write lots of prose, so. So it was quite interesting just finding, oh, if I try writing, actually, perhaps I can write.
Yes.
Yes, you know,
Yeah.
because you can just
You
be,
allowed yourself,
I hadn't allowed myself to
in case
think,
you were wrong.
in case I was wrong, yeah. And then I was very nervous about showing people. But, yeah, so it's quite interesting to just get out of the boxes that we make for ourselves.
We ended up talking quite a bit about, I suppose one aspect was, when is it important to define where you can open up to other possibilities of, because I was sharing where it's something where I feel like I'm definitely right. And but it's more than that, it's like they're definitely wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm starting to sort of notice that holding on and sort of laughing at myself. And
Yeah.
say, okay, there are these other possibilities. You know, we could all be right, actually.
Yes.
But then we were also talking about, well, sometimes it is really important to know when to be loose around it, and when actually there might be something where it is important to get it right.
Absolutely.
You know,
so,
so-
I mean, discriminating,
Yeah,
you know, is important.
yeah,
You know, it's not saying that's not important. And
yeah,
and you know, also being able to hear other people. I mean, it's quite often if you actually, when you disagree with someone, if you get them to talk about their value, you know, actually you can find things you agree with. You can find that thing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I'm just thinking how in the story how skillful it is. So the master puts it one way,
Yes.
and then the disciple puts it the
The
other way. And the master doesn't say, no, listen to me. He
Yeah.
sort of says, you know, thank you. You know,
Yes.
that's right. And that's, you know, that's.
Yeah, that's right. We're both right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of my personal disclosures to my group was I have a tendency to flight rather than fight. So if I come across a difficult correspondent conversation, I use very easily flight as in a skillful way. I just went and finished my meal at a different table that was outside and it's in the fresh wind rather than sitting up harboring thoughts in the hot kitchen. I went out and sat and gave time to the solution. So my flight gave me that time and the fresh air and the issue moved into another level of emotion.
Right, yes. Yeah, yeah. Yes, so it can be helpful having time, can't it? I mean, it can be helpful to be by yourself and just have time to reflect. Anything else are we doing for time? We're getting quite close to the end, aren't we? Anything else anyone wants to share before the end? Well, thank you. I mean,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah, Mitchell.
That's
That's very interesting. I think we've all got quite a bit to take away with us and
Yeah.
sort of observe over the week,
Yes.
where we can add some ands in to our lives. And sort of maybe even drop down into sort of more values and,
Yes, that's right. Lovely.
yeah,
Mm.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I should enjoy it. We should.
Oh, good.